Did you now with our lead story, polling chaos? Is the race getting tighter or is it all over? Joining us from Washington, Kyle Kondik from the University of Virginia Center for Politics. And from Cleveland, Caitlin Huey-Burns, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics. You first, Caitlin. Is Trump gaining?
Well, he is gaining some ground. We're seeing in that national poll that you just mentioned and in some battleground states, there is a little bit of tightening. That's good news for people like Senate Republican incumbents who are running for re-election or some congressional candidates who are looking for Donald Trump to close the gap a little bit with Hillary Clinton. But if you look at what the campaign is focused on, they are still trying to coalesce support within the Republican Party and hold on to red states. Places like Arizona are in play right now. North Carolina is another key battleground where Hillary Clinton is leading. Utah is even in play at this point where Mike Pence is campaigning. And so that kind of tells you where the campaign is thinking in terms of what they need to do.
I just want to point out that in the Fox News poll, they did say how many Democrats are going to vote for Hillary Clinton and how many Republicans are going to vote for Donald Trump. It's close. It's in the high 80s for both. There was not a gap in the Fox News poll. So, Mr. Kondik, have you seen, based upon the Fox News reportage today, a change?
I think the race is basically about where it's been. I think that Clinton is probably up somewhere around 5 or 6 points if you put all the polls together. You know, there were 3 big national polls that came out today. Fox News was at Clinton +3. The USA Today Suffolk poll you mentioned was Clinton +9, and then there was an Associated Press poll that actually had Clinton up 14. I think the truth is basically somewhere in the middle, and that's where the national polling averages have been for a while. Some of the states Trump's going to do better than he does nationally, probably a state like Florida, which historically is Republican-leaning. But we're also getting to the point where we're starting to see early voting. In fact, about more than 10 million people have already voted, and there's a lot of early voting in Florida. And so even if Trump is able to close in the final days, there are already votes that I think are probably accumulating against him.
But we can't speculate on what those votes might be. But here's my problem with the AP poll, which is why I didn't cite it, okay? All the local polling from Monmouth and Bloomberg and people like that, they have the states like New Hampshire and Florida tightening up, okay? But the AP has this blowout. And so I'm looking at it, if it's tightening up in these key states, how can it be a blowout? There's no trend here at all. There isn't any trend. One organization says this, the other organization says that. It'll be fascinating because we will do this the day after the election and tell you which polls blew it and which polls were accurate. Investors Business Daily poll, Caitlin, that has Trump ahead, actually winning. So I think people are confused. Are you confused?
Well, I think you have to really look at the aggregate, as Kyle mentioned, and the Real Clear Politics polling average does have Clinton up about 5.5 percentage points at this point.
But wait, let me tell you, I know you have them up, but that's skewed out to ABC, and we now know that poll polled far more Democrats than Republicans. And the AP, which looks to me to be an outlier, I could be wrong, and I'll apologize to AP if I am, but your average is skewed by those polls.
Well, it's still a significant margin if you consider all the polls that it does include. It also includes Rasmussen and an LA Times poll that shows Donald Trump ahead.
By just a little, though. If you took AP and ABC out of the Real Clear average, you'd have 3. That's what you have. You'd have 3% difference.
But I think what you need to look at here, too, is that sort of the range of polls right now show basically somewhere between a tie and Clinton up double digits. And again, you know, I think if the race were truly tied, you'd see some polls coming in at Trump +4, Trump +5, and maybe sort of the midpoint would be something of a tie. Okay. I don't think it's actually tied. I think Clinton's probably leading.
And that's what I said in the talking points. I believe that Clinton is ahead. But I was surprised, I have to say, that Clinton, on this new Fox News poll, I thought it was going to be 7 or 8. And it's down to 3. That shows me that Trump has gained momentum. But I don't know if momentum is going to help him if the Electoral College is stacked against him, Mr. Kondik, and your crew says it is. It's still stacked against him.
Yeah, and this is why I go back to Florida, because, again, we've got a lot of early voting that's already gone on there. While Bloomberg has Trump up 2, most of the other polls show Clinton up a very small amount, you know, 2, 3, 4 points. And if Trump can't win Florida, I don't see how he could win the
it's
election
over.
because Florida's the tied with New York as the third most populous state, 29 electoral votes. You just can't really make that up if you're a Republican.
You can't make it up. So that's why Trump's living down in Florida. Every 2 minutes he's chasing alligators around. He's water skiing. I mean, that's why he's living down there. You have to say. And Ohio's the other one, Caitlin. I got to win Ohio. He's got to win Ohio. He's got to win Florida. He's got to win North Carolina. Those are 3 musts. He can get away with losing Pennsylvania if he picks up the states out west. But he's got to win those 3.
Right, and here in Ohio, he is slightly ahead, and the demographics, of course, here favor Donald Trump, and so it wouldn't be entirely surprising if he won Ohio. Even if he wins Ohio and Florida, he still has a long path to the presidential race.
Everything's got to break his way.
Right, exactly.
Right.
He really has to
well, what's
to
the
clear
thing about Ohio
here.
that Ohio's picked every presidential race going back to Taft or something?
Ohio hasn't voted for the losers since it supported Nixon over Kennedy in 1960.
All right. Well, I think what we can learn today is race isn't over. Would you all agree with that? It's not over.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Close, but not quite.